Welcome to the Spooky Spotlight channel. Today we're going to speak on the chilling case of Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez was born in El Paso, Texas, in 1960. His early years were spent in a neighborhood that was a far cry from the American dream. His early life was far from idyllic. The streets were rough and the homes were often in disrepair, reflecting the harsh realities of poverty. Ramirez's upbringing was marred by poverty, neglect, and violence. The environment he grew up in was unforgiving, and it left deep scars on his young mind. His father, an ex-Mexican policeman, was known for his explosive temper. Beatings were commonplace, and the household was often filled with fear and tension. Richard's childhood was further darkened by a head injury. He began experiencing seizures, which added another layer of suffering to his already troubled life. His family life offered little solace. The constant turmoil and lack of emotional support made it difficult for him to find any sense of stability or comfort. An older cousin, Miguel, returned from the Vietnam War deeply scarred. His stories of violence and brutality had a profound impact on young Richard. He boasted of atrocities he had committed and introduced Richard to the world of drugs and Satanism. This exposure to such dark influences further twisted Richard's already fragile psyche. Ramirez's teenage years were marked by petty crime and increasingly disturbing behavior. He began to act out in ways that alarmed those around him. He dropped out of school, finding it impossible to fit into the structured environment of education. His academic struggles only pushed him further away from a conventional path. The streets became his classroom. He learned the harsh lessons of survival and crime, skills that would later define his notorious life. He embraced a life on the fringes of society. Alienated and adrift, he found a twisted sense of belonging in the shadows. His descent into darkness had begun. The seeds of his future infamy were sown in these early, troubled years, setting the stage for the horrors that would follow. In 1984, Richard Ramirez left El Paso for Los Angeles. He was seeking a new beginning, a place where he could disappear into the crowd and reinvent himself. The City of Angels, with its sprawling urban landscape and diverse population, seemed like the perfect place for him to start anew. California, the land of opportunity, would become his hunting ground. The city was a melting pot of dreams and despair, where the line between success and failure was razor-thin. For Ramirez, it was a place where he could blend in and go unnoticed, a place where he could indulge his darkest desires. He was drawn to the city's underbelly, its dark corners. The neon lights and shadowy alleys called to him, offering a sense of anonymity and freedom. It was in these hidden places that he felt most at home, where he could move through the night like a phantom. Los Angeles was where he would transform into the monster the world would come to fear. The city's gritty streets and menacing atmosphere provided the perfect backdrop for his descent into darkness. Here, he could shed his old identity and embrace his true nature. Ramirez found refuge in the city's sprawling network of cheap motels and flophouses. These rundown establishments offered him a place to hide, a place where he could plan his next move without attracting attention. The transient nature of these places suited his lifestyle perfectly. He embraced a transient lifestyle. Moving from place to place, he avoided forming any lasting connections. This rootlessness allowed him to stay one step ahead of the law and remain elusive. The streets of Los Angeles became his home, and its inhabitants his unwitting accomplices. Drugs fueled his paranoia and amplified the darkness within. The city's rampant drug culture provided easy access to substances that further unhinged his mind. Each hit took him deeper into his own twisted reality, blurring the lines between fantasy and reality. He drifted further from reality, his mind consumed by violent fantasies. These dark thoughts became his constant companions, driving him to commit acts of unspeakable horror. The more he indulged in these fantasies, the more detached he became from the world around him. He became obsessed with heavy metal music, particularly the satanic lyrics of AC/DC. The aggressive beats and dark themes resonated with his inner turmoil, providing a soundtrack to his descent into madness. Concerts became a place where he could lose himself in the crowd and feel a sense of belonging. His fascination with the occult deepened. He began to see himself as a disciple of darkness, drawn to the power and mystery of the unknown. Occult symbols and rituals became an integral part of his identity, further fueling his delusions of grandeur. He saw himself as a disciple of darkness. This self-image gave him a sense of purpose and direction, a justification for his actions. In his mind, he was not just a criminal, but a chosen one, destined to bring chaos and fear to the world. He was ready to unleash his rage upon the world. The City of Angels, with its bright lights and dark shadows, had become the perfect stage for his reign of terror. And so, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, began his deadly journey, leaving a trail of fear and destruction in his wake. On June 28, 1984, Richard Ramirez claimed his first victim. Jenny Vinkow, a 79-year-old widow, was brutally murdered in her own home. The savagery of the crime shocked even seasoned detectives. It was just the beginning. Ramirez's modus operandi was erratic and unpredictable. He targeted victims of different ages, races, and backgrounds. He broke into homes in the dead of night, armed with a terrifying array of weapons. Guns, knives, even a tire iron became tools of his gruesome trade. Each crime scene was a tableau of horror. He sexually assaulted his victims, often torturing them before ending their lives. Fear spread like wildfire throughout California. The Night Stalker had arrived. As Ramirez's reign of terror continued, so too did his depravity and cruelty. He seemed to revel in the fear he instilled in everyone. His crimes became more brazen, more violent, and more shocking. He no longer sought to conceal his heinous actions. His victims were often bound, their eyes covered as he subjected them to unimaginable horrors. He forced some to swear allegiance to Satan. He desecrated their homes, leaving behind satanic symbols scrawled in blood. Newspapers ran headlines screaming of the Night Stalker's latest atrocities. The public was captivated and horrified by the news. Fear permeated every corner of the Golden State. No one felt safe anymore. Ramirez's crimes were more than acts of violence. They were rituals. He saw himself as an instrument of Satan, carrying out his dark bidding. His fascination with the occult was evident in the chilling details he left behind. He often forced his victims to repeat satanic phrases. He drew pentagrams on their bodies and walls. His belief in the power of Satan seemed absolute. He believed he was invincible, protected by dark forces. His actions were a terrifying blend of madness and method. He was a cunning predator, able to evade capture for months. The police were baffled, their investigation hampered by the seemingly random nature of his crimes. The summer of 1985 was a time of unprecedented fear in California. The city was gripped with fear as the Night Stalker continued his reign of terror. Every shadow seemed to hide a potential threat, and the residents were on edge, waiting for the next strike. Sales of guns, locks, and security systems soared. News reports blared the latest updates on the Night Stalker case. The police were working tirelessly, but the elusive nature of the stalker made the task daunting. Every night, the city held its breath. The manhunt intensified. Sketches of the suspect based on eyewitness accounts were plastered everywhere. The media frenzy surrounding the case only fueled Ramirez's ego. Despite the fear, there was a glimmer of hope that justice would eventually prevail. As the body count mounted, so did the pressure on law enforcement. The FBI joined the investigation, bringing their resources and expertise to bear on the case. A task force was formed, working around the clock to analyze evidence and track down leads. A break in the case came from an unlikely source. After a botched carjacking attempt, Ramirez's fingerprints were found. His identity was finally revealed. His face, soon plastered on wanted posters across the state, became synonymous with terror. The net was closing in. The manhunt reached a fever pitch. On August 31st, 1985, Richard Ramirez was apprehended by a group of East Los Angeles residents. They recognized him from his wanted poster. He was beaten and held down until the police arrived. Justice, though delayed, would be served. His trial was a media spectacle. Ramirez, unrepentant and reveling in the attention, flashed satanic symbols to the courtroom. He seemed to enjoy the fear he instilled. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against him. The jury found Ramirez guilty on 43 counts, including murder, attempted murder, sexual assault and burglary. He was sentenced to death. He would spend the rest of his life on San Quentin's death row. What drove Richard Ramirez to commit such unspeakable acts? Psychiatrists who examined him described a man consumed by darkness, a product of a brutal upbringing and a troubled mind. Some pointed to his history of drug abuse. Others focused on his obsession with Satanism, suggesting he was driven by a warped sense of religious fanaticism. His case became a case study in criminal psychology, a chilling example of the depths of human depravity. Despite numerous attempts, Ramirez never offered a motive for his crimes. He remained an enigma, a chilling reminder that true evil often defies explanation. The story of Richard Ramirez, infamously known as the Night Stalker, is one that continues to send shivers down the spine of many. His reign of terror in the 1980s left an indelible mark on the psyche of California and beyond. Richard Ramirez died in prison in 2013 from complications of lymphoma. His death, however, did little to erase the fear and pain he had inflicted upon his victims and their families. He left behind a legacy of fear and pain. The mere mention of his name can still evoke a sense of dread, a testament to the horror he unleashed during his spree of violence. His name remains synonymous with terror, a chilling reminder of the vulnerability we all share. The Night Stalker case forced many to confront the unsettling reality that danger could be lurking just outside their doors. The Night Stalker case had a profound impact on California. It wasn't just the gruesome nature of his crimes that shocked the public, but also the randomness and brutality with which he chose his victims. Richard the Night Stalker was convicted of 13 murders, along with multiple counts of sexual assault and other crimes. His crime spree occurred between 1984 and 1985 in California, causing widespread fear and panic. His violent acts targeted a range of victims, contributing to his infamy as one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. It led to changes in law enforcement procedures and heightened awareness of home security. The fear he instilled prompted many to take extra precautions, leading to a surge in the installation of home security systems and neighborhood watch programs. But the scars of his crimes run deep, a testament to the enduring power of fear. The emotional and psychological wounds inflicted by Ramirez's actions continue to affect survivors and the families of his victims. Richard Ramirez may be gone, but the terror he inflicted continues to haunt the memories of those who lived through his reign of terror. The stories of survival and loss are a stark reminder of the human cost of his actions. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. The Night Stalker's legacy is a somber reflection on the capacity for evil that exists within some individuals and the lasting impact such darkness can have on society. Thank you for watching, and remember, shine bright in the spooky spotlight. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Spooky Spotlight channel for more chilling stories.